Namaste and welcome to Detours with me, Anuradha Goyal, where I talk to some very interesting personalities about journeys of all kinds. Today we have two very interesting personalities on our podcast, Dr. Hari and Hema ji. They are the founders of Bharat Gyan Portal, and they publish a series of books, videos, and all kinds of content around Indian civilization. Like me, they have a background in IT, but they gave that up to pursue the cause of Indian civilization, and their work in this space is incredible, simply incredible. The amount of work they have done to look at every aspect from historical perspective, as well as how it is relevant today in our today's life. So do check out their portal, bharatgyan.com. And today they are going to take us through a Kumbh clock, which is the timeline of a Kumbh Mela, how it works. So Hari ji and Hema ji, namaste and welcome to Detours.
Namaste. 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 Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So let us start with how many Kumbhs are there. And now we all know there are 4 Kumbh Melas that happen at regular intervals, at an interval of 12 years. In Haridwar, on the banks of Ganga, in Prayagraj, at the confluence of Ganga and Yamuna, in Ujjain, on the banks of Kshipra, and in Nasik, on the banks of Godavari. But if I'm not wrong, there are more such festivals that happen at other rivers as well, especially in south of India. So would you take us through the landscape of Kumbh Mela?
Sure. See, Kumbh actually is a three-tier festival. Okay, what you just mentioned are the 4 main Kumbhs that
Right.
you mentioned.
Right.
That's one. Then apart from this, all over India, you have regional festivals equivalent Utsav equal to Kumbh. They are called Pushkaram.
Okay.
They are all over the land, right from the Brahmaputra river where you have Pushkaram to the Sindhu Nadi, Sindhu Pushkaram, to down south in the Tamrabarni river, which is just north of Kanyakumari. There you have the Tamrabarni Pushkaram. So you have Pushkarams in all the rivers, Tungabhadra river, to Krishna river, all the rivers you have Pushkaram, Godavari, Mahanadi, everywhere. All the major rivers of India have their Pushkarams.
Okay.
And it's spread all over the geography of the land. That is the beauty of it.
Okay. So what are they called? Are they all called Pushkarams?
Yes, they are all called Pushkarams.
And they
Because
all
the
happen
word
at a
Pushkaram,
different point in time.
yes, they are all called Pushkarams because the word Pushkar means that which is energizing,
Okay.
invigorating, health giving,
Right.
healthy,
Nourishing.
nourishing, nourishment. Because the word, that's why when somebody is stockily, well built, all that you say Pushti.
The root is Pushti.
Pushti.
Okay. So
What
does
does
it
the
also have something to do with the Pushkar, the Pushkar lake?
Mela?
Yes.
Pushkar, because that which gives fertility,
Okay.
that which nourishes, is a Pushkar.
Okay. Pushkar is also one of the major pilgrimage places in Rajasthan.
Yes.
Rajasthan, Pushkar, where you got the Brahma temple
Yes.
and where the famous camel festival happens.
Actually,
Camel
Camel
Fair.
Festival is actually Kartik Snan. Now
Yes,
it's
yes.
now we call
No,
it.
it
no,
started
no.
yesterday, Kartik Mas, that's right.
Yes. So it is actually a Kartik Snan. It's not really Camel Festival, but it so happens that when these Kartik Melas used to happen, the trade also happened. And now it has been rebranded as
Camel Fair, and the Pushkar Snan part is lost.
Yes.
But very interesting if you see all the important water bodies itself,
Yes.
especially those which are attached to temples and pilgrimage sites, they're called Pushkarni.
Yes. Yes.
So all the temple tanks usually are called Pushkarnis.
If you
Okay.
take the
Yes.
one in Tirumala temple, it is called Pushkarni, like everywhere. Similarly, you have a Pushkaram in Kumbakonam in the temple tank of Kumbeswarar in the temple town of Kumbakonam. That's
Right.
also Pushkar. All over.
Yes.
The next tier is called Sangamam.
Okay. So we
Because-
have Kumbh and then Pushkaram, and the third one is Sangamam.
Sangamam, it is, you have many rivers in this beautiful, vibrant, fertile, rich land of Bharata.
Yes.
They have probably 500 rivers, 1,000 rivers or more.
Yes.
And we have about at least wherever two rivers join, the joining point, Sangam,
Yes.
there's a Mela there every year
Yes.
of the
Magh-
local villages of that region, of that district.
Typically in Magh month, right?
Different months. See, it's again very seasonal when the rains come there, when the waters come there. It's very local. All based on the local topography, local hydrology. That is why it is known as Desachar.
Yes.
Achar is practice. Desachar is a local practice.
Right.
And respecting the Desachar is the Kalachar.
Right.
Is the culture of the land.
Right.
So we respect the Desachar, being the topography of it, being the hydrology, when it rains and when it's conducive. So through the ages, they have kept different Sangamams in different parts of the land. So if we have about 500 or more districts in India, we have 500 or more such confluences in different parts of India, and we have 500 or more such Sangams or Sangamela in different parts of India. So that is also, you have 4 Kumbh Mela, you have a few dozen Pushkarams, and you have a few hundred Sangamams.
Right. In fact, that reminds me that I was doing a story on the water heritage of India, and I realized that we have no database of Indian rivers. There is no census done on Indian rivers as to how many rivers are there, and with them, or how many confluences are there, and how many river culture festivals are there.
Yes, true. That's true.
You know.
Now, getting on to the point
Yes.
of the Kumbh clock,
Yes.
how do we know when at each river confluence or the Pushkarams or the Sangam that they meet? Who decides?
Actually, it's very beautiful for people living in the cities. Many of people who have come from villages to work in cities, we will notice, where suddenly they will say, "Oh, I need to go to my village. There is a Sangam happening. There is a Mela happening, and I need to go for my village festival."
Right.
That's very common, and they all know when they have to go.
Right. We always know when to go for all the 3 of these melas.
Absolutely.
How do we know?
Now, today we have an invitation card, a WhatsApp message, an email, all that we have. The
Calendar.
print media.
Yes.
How did we do this many decades ago or many centuries ago? Through the centuries. That is the moot question.
Yes.
Nobody invited anybody.
And flawlessly.
And it happened exactly. You may be, there may be a rishi who will be sitting in a forest or on top of a hill doing his dhyana.
Yes.
Okay, doing his pujas. But he or she, rishi, rishika, or whoever, or a grihastha, wherever he is doing his work, or a sannyasi who is traveling in different parts of the land, they would know exactly which place, which river, which confluence to go to, and they will head there quietly. All of them.
Yes.
How is this? How did this happen?
And that too from all over the land.
You
Yes.
would have
Yes.
sannyasis and grihasthas coming from Kashmir or Assam to the Tamrabarni Pushkarni
Yes.
near the Kanyakumari.
Yes.
Or you would have people going from Karnataka or Kerala or Andhra Pradesh all the way up to Sindhu Pushkaram.
Right.
How did this happen? Across the land.
Yes.
That's because all these rivers are intrinsically linked, intertwined with the different stars in the sky. There's a geo-astral connect.
Okay, which basically means the connect between the sky and the earth, which is through these rivers.
Also through the rivers.
Also through the rivers, also through water bodies. So, and all this is a 12-year cycle.
Okay.
This whole Kumbh, Pushkaram, Sangamam is a 12-year cycle.
Okay.
Why 12 years? If you look at the word Kumbh,
Yes.
the word Kumbh itself means a pot,
Pot.
a pitcher.
Yes.
Okay,
Kalash.
Kalash. And we all know Jupiter,
Yes.
Guru,
Yes.
Brihaspati,
Yes.
the largest planet in the solar system.
Yes.
Its revolution around the parent body, the sun, is 12-year cycle.
Yes.
The way our earth goes around the sun in 1 year,
That's 365 days.
Jupiter takes
12.
12 years to go around the sun.
12 Earth years.
12 earth years. So,
So-
it starts in Aries. So
Yes.
for it to come back to this Aries, it will take 12 years.
12 years. Yes.
So,
And
that is-
In each Rashi for 1 year, roughly.
Yes.
so that means there are 12 Rashis. Because Jupiter goes round, takes 12 years to go round,
Right.
and we have 12 months in a year, we have
Right.
12 Rashi.
Yes.
And that's why you call this 12-year cycle as a Jovian year. Jovian, Jovian, Jupiter,
Okay.
Jovian year.
Okay.
So that is the Brihaspati year.
Right.
It's a Guru year. That's 12-year
Right.
cycle.
Right.
Okay. So you have this. So when Jupiter, as you correctly said, had the 12 Rashis in the sky, when Jupiter transits from one Rashi to another, each of these 12 Rashis through the year, when it leaves one Rashi or enters another Rashi or in a Rashi, you have different of these Kumbh and Pushkarams depending upon which river or which water body is associated or it's got a particular astral connect.
Right.
So what they have done is, so from the earth, when you look at Jupiter, every year you will see it in one or the other Rashi.
Right.
So, I mean, in a particular cyclic order.
Right.
And they have mapped each river. See, there is some very, very beautiful intrinsic interconnection in the Indian thought. You know, we have a connection between river and stars, trees and stars. Stars meaning actually zodiac itself, the Rashi.
Rashi.
Yes.
The word
So-
Rashi itself means cluster, a
Yes.
constellation.
Yes.
So there are 12 constellations or 12 clusters in the sky through which the sun, moon, Jupiter, Saturn, and all the visible planets transit through. So that's like a highway in the sky.
Right.
When seen from Earth, of course.
Of course, from a geo positioning perspective.
Right.
Okay. And these are the 12 transit points or the in that highway in the sky. And it repeats. It's a cyclical highway
Right.
for a simpler understanding. So
Yes.
in that we have markers. For these markers in the sky, we have equivalent markers on Bharatavarsha, our land.
Right.
So each Rashi is associated with a particular river. So whenever Jupiter comes to that particular Rashi, it becomes a Kumbh or a Pushkar or a Sangam for that particular river and confluence.
Yeah, that's very interesting because that's why the Nasik and the Ujjain Kumbh are actually called Simhast, not really Kumbh.
Yeah, they are actually
Simhast
called
because
Simhas,
the
yes.
Jupiter enters the Leo
Leo
constellation.
constellation, yes. And for some of them, they also take the position of the sun. So when sun is here and Jupiter is there, then it is this Kumbh. When sun is here and Jupiter is here, it is this kind of a Kumbh.
Can you
So-
explain this with an example for some of the Pushkarams? Because for these four Kumbhs, it's fairly accessible information, but for the Pushkarams, we don't know.
Yeah, Pushkarams, actually, we have a beautiful map made of all the Pushkarams that take place and when it takes place. For example, when you have Jupiter in Taurus, that is Rishabh Rashi,
Right.
then you have the Narmada Pushkar in Narmada in Madhya Pradesh, and also in Ganga in Uttarakhand.
Okay.
And similarly, in Saraswati River, it used to happen when it used to be in Gemini or Mithuna.
Okay.
And like you have the Krishna, Pushkar in Krishna when it is in Virgo,
Okay.
Kanya Rashi.
So, which means they will essentially repeat every 12 years.
Every 12 years for each river, it will repeat after 12 years. Because, for instance, this Bhima, Bhima and Tamraparni, both of them, they are associated with Scorpio.
Okay.
Vrishchika. And so when Jupiter comes to Vrishchika, in both Bhima and in Tamraparni, you have the Pushkar happening.
Okay.
And Jupiter will come to Scorpio again only once after 12 years.
Yes.
So the Bhima Pushkar will take place again after 12 years only.
Okay. So basically,
But the next year, actually, but the year after that, when Jupiter goes into Sagittarius, then it is for Brahmaputra and Tapti.
Okay. Okay.
What this means is the sannyasis and the grihasthas and the rishis, rishikas, they all travel, they get to travel all over India in a 12-year cycle
Yes.
of their life. They have done a real Bharat Darshan by foot.
That's a very interesting point you make. So you're essentially saying that if you follow this Kumbha clock and you keep visiting the rivers where the Kumbh is happening, you will cover the whole of land of India, and as well as you'll see the different cultures, because every culture is very different in the way it celebrates Kumbh.
This Kumbh and the Indian concept of Yatra are very tightly connected.
Yes.
So this is like an annual yatra that people do, you know, to
Yes.
go from one river to one Tirth Sthan. It's not just river. It's actually they go from one Punya Tirth to another Punya Tirth.
Right. Which essentially
And it's
covers
so
the
interesting.
smallest of the places eventually.
Yes. And it's very interesting that, you know, we identify our pilgrimage spots as Tirth Sthan.
Yes.
We don't say Devasthan so much as we say Tirth Sthan.
Tirtha, which essentially
Yeah, it's
is
a
water.
Yeah, Tirth is the main thing. So we recognize that water is our divinity.
Yes.
And the rivers are our divine divinities, and these water bodies are our Pushkarnis. They are Kalyanis. In Karnataka and all, they're called Kalyanis.
Right. Okay, that leads me to another question. Now, these four major kumbhs, they happen at a particular spot, you know. So Ganga may be 3,000 kilometer long, but the kumbh happens only in Haridwar and in Prayag. Same goes for Godavari and Kshipra. But in the Godavari Pushkaram, I've heard it happens across the whole stretch of land and not at a particular place. Is that right?
It is, yes. And also to understand, see, why do people congregate only in one place in a particular river?
Right.
So that everybody can come together for a period of, be it 1 week or 1 month or 3 months. They can come and interact there.
Yes.
All the sannyasis, rishis and grihasthas and brahmacharis.
And
across
to an extent,
Varna,
they were trade opportunities also to an extent.
Knowledge exchange, discuss ideas.
Right.
Right from Shrishti to the present, the societal, the needs of the Samaj were discussed in the Kumbhs. What were the issues the land facing? What are the issues the civilization is facing?
Right.
So all these things were discussed. So when if you suppose you have a Kumbh in the Ganga river,
right,
people could come anywhere from Rishikesh, Haridwar or
Right.
Dev Prayag all the way up to the Sagar. So the chance of people coming together at a river is good, but more importantly, the chance of people coming together in one Nagara,
right,
in one Kshetra, to discuss issues not just for 1 day, 2 days, but for couple of months.
substantial period of time.
So that is what has kept the civilization vibrant and
Right.
alive.
So it was not just to come and take a dip in the water. That is one side of things. But fundamentally, they were taking place at some of the most important sites along the river,
Right.
so that people could congregate there. There would already be scholars there, and people can get to share and receive knowledge from these knowledgeables.
Exchange ideas.
Yes.
That is
And I
important.
also believe the rivers were our major mode of transportation. So people would actually travel on the network of rivers and come.
Absolutely.
Internal navigation was a big part.
Yeah. Which has
It's a
been
big
completely
internal navigation
killed.
part of our system. See, this land of Bharata, travel was not only by foot. Substantial travel was by
Rivers.
nav,
Yes.
navigation,
Right.
both from the seas along the coast and as well as internally along the rivers,
Right.
both for trade and as well as for Tirtha Yatra.
Right.
That's why if you see, lot of the serais are along the banks of rivers.
A lot of what, sir?
Serai,
Sarai, Mughal Sarai, all
Right.
the
all the
Sarais.
serais,
Yeah.
all the serai, and what you call in south as the Chavadi or the Chattiram,
Right.
where
They were
people
like, they were like traveling, they were like
traveling in.
But one
motels.
point here, Anuradha ji, while there was internal navigation that was used very nicely, most of the internal navigation was for trade, whereas most of the yatra were actually only by foot. So even though they were taking place by the rivers, because going by foot, it was the pilgrimage itself. It was like your sankalp, your kind of a vrat itself to go by foot. See, even today, it's like your mannat. You want to go to a particular temple, you say, I'll come by foot. So
Right.
most of these yatras were done by foot, which is why you have lot of these pilgrim shelters in many towns all over the land. Many in the north have got destroyed, but in the south, many are still preserved.
Yes, even the cave systems were basically meant for travelers and traders who were traveling on those paths.
Because if you're going to have so much people, churn of people continuously traveling in a 12-year cycle all over the land, it's not a few hundred or few thousand, it's many thousand people to many lakhs of people traveling constantly. That means you had robust pathways, walkways, bullock cart ways, chariot ways, and you had
Inns kind of
guest
like-
houses
guest house.
available for people to stay the night, especially with the unwell, looked after through Ayurveda treatment. And then, so there was a very robust infrastructure across the land,
Travel infrastructure
very robust. That somehow
and a free travel infrastructure. So it was more like a hosting infrastructure. So
Right.
people were hosting people, each other. So all our old village houses, if you see, they all typically have that angan outside,
Right.
where people come, where the travelers could come and sleep in the night, and then morning just go off. And
have a breakfast or a dinner.
and that is why we also have the phrase Atithi Devo Bhava,
Right.
because Atithi means somebody who comes unannounced.
Announced. Right.
Because Tithi is something that is for sure, it is going to
Right.
come.
Right.
Tithi means, tomorrow is this Tithi, that Tithi. It's a definite date.
Right.
So a Tithi means it's not definite, so unannounced.
Right.
So these people, travelers, would come and knock at your door in the evening unannounced, wherever they want to halt and they are hungry or they want water or whatever, they would come and knock at your door. And so these kind of atithis were Devo Bhava, not the people that you have invited to your house for a meal or something. So all these atithis were looked after, they were allowed to sleep in the angan and then continue to keep their travel on.
In fact, I believe when you do Narmada Parikrama, you still follow this. You stop at any ashram, any temple, any home, and people on that route have homes which allows travelers to, stay in the simplest possible way, but they are given place to cook their food and eat. So I guess that's one route that is still alive with this kind of a traveling mechanism in place.
One of the things when the Sri Ramachandra Janmabhoomi shape Punya Kshetra is again revived and built well, we should have the two parikramas around it.
The
Yes.
Ayodhya
There are two parikramas in Ayodhya. They also
There
should
are
be
five
revived.
actually. There are five
Yes.
parikramas in Ayodhya,
Yes.
but
So,
two are doable. 14 kosi and 5 kosi.
so
Yeah.
you have to revive them so that people can again do this parikrama and have facilities all over there. So
Yeah.
because that's why
Actually,
you have
they
the concept.
exist. I mean, I have done both of them, and they actually exist. And those paths are very well laid out, and people regularly do it, especially around the Kartik Mela from Kartik Ekadashi to Kartik Purnima. Those roads are full of people traveling around and doing. And I mean, of course, there can be improvements, lot of improvements for the volumes that will come. But those routes are well laid out, well equipped, and if you want to do it today, you can easily do it today.
It goes down to many things. It touches astronomy, it touches
Yes.
water bodies,
Yes.
it touches yatra,
Flora,
Yes.
fauna.
and it touches the entire innate culture of the land of hosting.
Yes. I'll bring you back to the Kumbha clock and ask you, if I, as a lay person, want to know where are the pushkarams or sangamams happening in next 2 years to plan my travel, where do I find it and how do I find it?
Yeah, coming up with a book called Kumbh, which we plan to bring out for the upcoming Kumbh
Okay.
in January.
Okay.
Okay, in which this a snapshot of this Kumbh clock is brought out.
Okay.
Not only for this particular Kumbh,
Right.
it's basically a repeat cycle. So it's a
Right.
cyclical thing. So you can use it
Right.
as a ready reckoner.
Right.
We'll share that screen with you so that you can put it up along with you so people will know.
Yes, please. Please do that.
And obviously, once the book comes out, that will be there in the
Yes.
with
So
with
it's
all the
more like a 12-year map. So you know that if this Kumbh is happening this year, next year will be this, or next to next year will be this, and then you can plan your travel
Travels.
accordingly. Right. It'll be great. But is there a pattern in this Kumbh clock?
pattern means it's not a geographical. It can be in zigzag also.
Okay.
It's
there
not a
is-
very cyclical pattern.
Okay. No, is there a pattern in the sense which river is associated with which zodiac? Is there a logic to that? Or is there
See,
a reason
definitely
to
there,
that?
there would have been a logic, like I told you in the beginning itself. No, see, actually, if you see, each of our Rashi is associated with a river, with a tree, with an animal, with a
Yes.
color, and so many different associations are there. And so obviously there is some logic, but you know,
Deep
it's
logic. There's a very deep logic to each of this. Because let's be clear one thing. Anything in the Indian civilization is not illogical.
That is true. So, for example, like you mentioned, Tapti and Yamuna, they are both considered Surya Putri. So, I'm assuming in their timing there will be some role of sun that comes up. I'm assuming. I
Yes.
don't know.
Exactly. So we should know the Purana for that to understand the logic.
Yes. So similarly, there are other Brahmaputra, of course, would be associated with Brahma. I'm assuming again, but
See, Brahmaputra, incidentally, Brahmaputra name is only for 1/4 of the river,
yes,
only in the state of Assam.
yes,
In other places, it's got other names. So that way it varies. So each, for example, if you take Tungabhadra, it is associated with the Makara Rasi.
yes.
Okay.
Just like the Sangam of Yamuna and Ganga is associated with Makar. So that Kumbh
Like that.
should actually be Makarast.
So like that, each one has got it. Suppose if you take Kaveri in Karnataka, it is associated with the Tula Rasi.
Okay.
Like that. Okay. Each one is like that.
Okay.
Okay.
So, but we don't
Nadi-
know why we do we have
There is.
documentation of the
For that,
source?
you have to go into the Mahatmyam of each of the rivers.
Okay. Okay.
There, the association is clearly brought out.
Okay.
That, see, we have to interlink each one because why a particular tree, why a particular water, why a particular devata, already associated with a particular Rashi is there in the Mahatmyam.
Okay.
And each of these rivers has their own Mahatmyam. Each month has a Mahatmyam.
Yes.
and like you
yes.
say, actually you have to go back even into the Puranic stories, no Puranic legends.
Yes, I'm aware. I did a write up on Kartik Mas Mahatmya, and I discovered so many things which are actually living culture. Associated with Amla and association with Deep Dan, which is celebrated
Right.
across the country. So yeah, but I was just wondering if again, for lay persons, is there a ready reckoner that I can refer to?
I think you and I, we have to do it.
I know we have to do it. We'll do it. I mean, these conversations are actually, in a way,
Absolutely.
ideation exercises also for the kind of work that is still pending to be done. So hopefully that. But if you can share that map, it will help.
Yeah. We will send you that picture.
Yes. So, how is, I mean, and we've spoken about the different types of Kumbh, but how is a Pushkaram or a Sangamam actually different from these Kumbh Melas, if there is a difference?
See, like we said, most of these kumbhs, if you see, happen in predominantly the major pilgrim spots,
Right.
and pushkarams are on major rivers,
Right.
associated with major rivers, and sangams would be, smaller confluences at village levels.
Yeah, but is there a difference between what is done on the river banks apart from, taking a dip, which is a common thing across all the three, taking a dip in the
Let's be very
river?
clear. Dip is only a smallest of the 5 aspects of a. There are 5 types of snan.
Okay.
The dubki that you take in the water is the last, is the 5th.
Okay.
It's not the primary snan.
Okay. What are the other 4? If you can briefly tell us.
One is obviously jala snan.
Right.
Then there's prana snan,
Okay.
mantra snan,
Okay.
nada snan,
Okay.
and dhyana snan.
Okay.
It's called as panchasnana.
Okay.
So jala snana is only one of them. That's obviously everybody has to take a jala snan daily. We are in the tropics.
Right.
We are not in the Tundra region or the Arctic region.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
okay, jala snan is part of it.
Right.
Then you must understand your prana first.
Right.
Then different aspects of mantra, nada, dhyana. So there are different levels to the snana.
Yeah, so that's one part. No, like I'm saying, what I was trying to get to was that Snan is one part which is common to all the 3 festivals.
No, snan meaning, what you're saying, snan, when you're saying snan, you mean only jala snan.
Even if we say all the 5 snans, but in terms
Yeah,
of
but those
rituals-
snans are not snan as a bath.
Yes.
It's not a bathing.
See, like dhyana snan means it's just to go into meditation.
Immerse yourself in dhyana.
Yes.
So it's not immediately with the bathing ritual.
So
Right.
it's snana here is to immerse yourself. So immerse in water, immerse in dhyan, immerse in music, sounds, immerse yourself in mantra. So like that.
So immersing in water is just one of them.
Right. So I'm saying, so apart from these 5 types of Snan, in terms of the actual happenings on the ground, are there any differences between these?
Yes, there are 5 anubhava that you have
Okay.
in a kumbh.
Okay.
The
What
one
are
is
these?
snan, second is samvad,
Yes.
third is kosha.
What is that?
There are different sheets of your level, no?
Koshas.
Annamaya
Okay.
Annamaya kosha. The different kosha, the 5 koshas.
Yeah, 5 koshas. So what do you do with those 5 koshas?
You have to experience an anubhava. No? The whole kumbh is about anubhava.
Okay, Anubhava. And then?
Anubhava at these 5 at each of these 5 koshas.
Okay.
So when you say Annamaya kosha, you experience a kumbh with all the foods of that region,
Right.
with all the that is served. Okay, that.
Right.
So you experience kumbh at each of the 5 kosha. That's anubhava.
Okay.
That's the most important thing in our jivan.
Right.
Then you have the bhuta.
Okay.
So there's a bhuta anubhava.
So the elements, I mean, every geographical region is going to be different.
Yes.
So you're going to experience that as well.
The Panchabhuta, all the
And the
Panchabhuta.
colors, the different colors, you get exposure to the colors of those local regions.
Okay.
So,
So,
these are fundamentally how, but coming to, if you ask me what ritual will they do, Aarti, will they do, those are things that go along with different people, so people as they travel, they'll continue to do their pujas and their daily rituals, and those kind of
in their
stuff.
own way.
But I find this 5 Anubhava very interesting. If you can say that in 5 words once again for us, that's very interesting, you know. So,
Jnana, Samvad, Kosha, Bhuta, and the 64 Kala.
and 64 color. So it's like a complete wholesome engagement inside and outside.
Absolutely.
You put it right, inside and outside, you put it right. Because it is not just taking a dubki in the flowing river or the lake.
Right,
That's just one component of it. Obviously, everybody has to take a dubki.
right.
Beyond that, there's so much more. There's samvad,
Yes,
vada, prativada, samvada.
right, right.
Okay, that is important.
Yes. So it's a very wholesome festival, and people should not think of it as go take a dubki, come back.
No, no, no.
You know, in fact, my experience of being at Kumbh is that unless you are spending a few days there, living the life of a Kumbh Mela, it's not really you're not really gaining anything out of it. It may be a good sensory exercise, but if you really want to experience it, you have to live there as a sannyasi or live there as a kalpavasi and experience it.
So, and actually, that is why if you see, a lot of these people today in Kumbh, if you go, you'll find so many kind of tents or akhada set up, and there are a lot of pravachans going on through the day for people to come and listen. So there are the gurus come there. So it is beautiful. What we write that as the guru travels in the sky,
Right.
the gurus on earth also keep traveling to all these kumbhs to
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
educate the people of the land.
Yes, yes, that's beautiful. That's really, really beautiful way of summing up the Kumbh Mela. As the Guru travels in the sky, the Gurus on the earth travel to engage with the world and, enrich
The
us.
people, they
Yes.
travel to engage with the people.
Yes, yes, and to enrich us, enrich people who come in touch with.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great, Hemaji and Hariji. This was a beautiful conversation about Kumbh Mela. I'm sure your book will have much more than this aspect of it. And we will invite you again on some other topic. Both of you are like encyclopedia on Indian civilizational knowledge. So we'll keep calling you back for another conversation. Thank you so much for enriching us on Kumbh Mela. And
Thank you. It's our pleasure. And wish all your audience and readers a very happy upcoming Kumbh Utsav.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you for joining us on Detours. You can also join us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Our handle is Inditales, INDITALES. See you soon.